the excited orgy of politicking today, of voting, of taking part in primaries, the themes and virtues of local economy slip almost entirely out of view. If you're not thinking clearly with your head on straight, you're going to think like everybody else is. You're going to think that today is very important, that we are at a crossroads of our nation, and that picking the primary, the party head in the primaries is the most important thing we could possibly do today. Everything in our schedule has to fall aside so that we can go out and vote and take part in the primaries. Here in the Hamilton County area, the primaries are most vivid, most lively on the Republican side, where there are many contenders for the federal presidency, and there is competition for the seats of assessor property and criminal court judge. But what we're really thinking about is the nation as a whole. Washington, which man, or will it be a woman? Which man is in charge? Well, I guess they're all the same. Which man will be in charge of the federal presidency? The pinprick at the top of a gigantic bowling ball, if you will, that is the national government is heavy, probably heavier, denser material in the federal government. And the president, whomever that might be, is a pinprick at the top of this gigantic structure, which you might say rolls around on the marketplace, crushing everything in its way, and being too dense to really take apart anymore and put back together. It cannot be fixed. That is the marketplace assessment of the hoopla today. The marketplace assessment is that it doesn't matter which figurehead is at the top of the empire, the top of the federal machinery, the monolith, which is was never intended to be a monolith by the constitutionalist idealists who founded the country back in 1779 or 1778, and the revolution, the war for independence. They had ideas and ideals about what government would do, how government could be structured to restrain itself. And the anti-federalists, the Patrick Henrys, were right. It wouldn't work. There would be finally hegemony in Washington, which is to say control in the District of Columbia, the 68 square mile federal district that is the seat of power, and which is the Baphomet. You might say the Baphomet is the image in the pentacle, the federal stars. There are 50 pentacles in the blue field on the federal flag. They are all upside down Baphomets, the goat-headed demonic figure, looking to heaven for succor. Right, that is what we have. We have a union with a deep and dark origins and a bright promise for you, my listener, here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We have today in the voting, you might say, an orgasm of the state. There is this catharsis in which the populace is driven and drawn to participate in, and it puts out of view the marketplace. It puts out of view local economy, and of course, the free market and the marketplace being really synonyms. But when I refer to it, I always say local economy and the free market together. Those two things suggest the perspective that you, my listener, actually believe in. And what I do here at our show every morning at 9 o'clock is to give voice to what you see. Right? I'm giving voice to what you already see. I'm putting into words the deep groanings of your spirit, which have touched with despair on the national prospect, and which has somehow thought vaguely there's hope if we can just come up with our own answers here. If we just figure it out here and do things here, if we can think locally and act locally, we might possibly stave off the disaster ahead. The financial cataclysm with the national government on its official debts at 18 trillion paper dollars and at least 65, maybe 85 trillion dollars in obligations, and other obligations that could probably pass $200 trillion as well, in the way of promises that are not legally binding, but which are political chits given out over the years. The guarantee of Israel's national debt, for example, we have responsibility for that, and many, many other arrangements, concordances, conventions, agreements, contracts, and covenants with governments around the world, some of whom are among the 81 nation states that we have active military forces on the ground today as we speak here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There are American boys and a few gals in arms protecting our liberties and freedoms in 81 far-flung countries and nation states around the world under the umbrella of the American eagle, under the wings of the great protector bird, the eagle. But you, my listener, you have things going on. You have things you need to do. You've got to get that oil changed, and you need to talk with a man from your tech support services about a new server, and that's going to take an hour. And you just may not get around to going to vote today. There's some paperwork you have to get together for Eric Pelton. You're going to go and see him. You kind of made an appointment with him a little earlier than he'd planned to have taxes done, and you're going to need a couple hours today to get that together because you're meeting with Eric Pelton, who handles accounting and things like that next Wednesday. And you're going somewhere this weekend, and you're going to have to take some time today where you think you've got some downtime to do that work, gathering all your papers together so that you can voluntarily go and voluntarily file a tax return with Eric Pelton's help. Well, that means you might not be able to go out and vote today, the most important day of the year, probably the most important day of the century, in which you pick the Republican standard bearer. You make your vote known for the Republican standard bearer. But there's an oil change. You've got to talk to the guy about the rider, and you've got to get all those tax papers together for Eric Pelton. You've gone over to Eric Pelton from H&R Block, because Eric Pelton gives much better service, much better service, and he's the local man involved in tax returns for the past 34 or 35 years, knows exactly what's going on, knows all the tricks, right? We are taking part today in an event which I'd like to suggest to you is wonderfully and exhilaratingly irrelevant. And it's irrelevant because in the exercise of the vote, in the exercise of the democratic privilege, as it's called, to cast a ballot, we are involved in an important act of piety, a kind of a sacrament. Voting and elections are a sacrament in the church of politics. Politics, of course, is what? Politics is the process of law. In the end, when you take an interest in politics, you're taking an interest in lawmaking, law passing, law interpreting, law enforcing. All those things arise out of law. Some law which declares certain acts good and other acts evil, wicked, to be suppressed, penalized, fined, taxed, and so on. You are taking part in a great exercise about the means of salvation in the modern welfare and surveillance state, and that is law. If we have the right laws, and if we have the right stewards of laws in Washington and in Nashville and on the Hamilton County Commission, we will have nirvana. We will have peace. We will have security. Every man will be in his place, every child in his bed, secure with food on the table when he wakes up, plenty of toys. He will have his education, the books supplied for by the Department of Education in Nashville. He will have everything he needs with law and the right stewards of the law in the high places of our country and of our state and county. We will have peace. We will have rightness with God. We will have favor of the heavens. We will have the rainbow coursing in its arc over our heads as we are blessed. We are blessed. And elections, in that sense, are not irrelevant. They are highly relevant to our state of being, our state of mind. And this is David Tulis, wanting to propose to you that the idol of politics, the god of politics, is in fact exhausted, that deity cannot deliver anymore on the myriad promises that it has never really offered, but which we have attributed to it as offering to us. We have attributed to politics the payoff, the payout, the charity, the welfare, the goodness, the mercy, and the care that it never promised. It really has never promised that, though the figureheads in politics have done so. We are the ones who have granted, we have ascribed to the state, we have ascribed to the progressive political system and the process of elections and bartering and lobbying. We have ascribed to that a kind of salvation, and we have warmed ourselves before it. We have crouched before it and received its benefits, received its security. That is the main thing that it offers, is security. Elections are relevant to us as a fallen people, if you will, because we have the forgiveness of our sins. We have a kind of expiation of our sins. If we go before the modern state, if we go before the voting booth, we have a kind of forgiveness for all the wrongs we've done. Think of that American who's being sentenced in North Korea. Did you hear in the CBS News a moment ago, actually our morning news program, did you hear his lamentable cry of forgiveness, his begging for forgiveness, his remarkable attestation that the North Korean authorities have treated him with great humanity, and they are a good and worthy people, looking out for their citizens and looking out for him, and he has sinned against them. That sort of thing that the American prisoner now will be thinking, and that he has said, is a way of expiating his sins. Is a part of the repayment of his sins, of having violated the security of that people, and undermining, even though what we would say is very slight, by very, very slight means, undermining the credibility of that government in the eyes of its people. In other words, an act of sabotage. And we bow before the modern state here, though we, in doing so, we forget about local economy. We forget about free markets. We forget about the independent man. We forget about freedom. We forget really about things that we would encompass in constitutional government. And I would say the promises of the gospel. The gospel promises, when we take part in this election process today, we are laying aside these promises, and we are sitting before the great form, the great, even you could call it an idol, but which I suggest to you is widely being considered as an exhausted God. Politics is the exhausted God. If we have political solutions, how can they come for what are political problems? How can we have politics creating problems, and politics? How can we have these bringing for the people, bringing for ourselves the remedy? I don't think that that's possible, and I would say that the fundamentals are unchanged. Whomever comes in the high seat in Washington will not change the fundamentals. There's only just, I think, really the thing that's really possible, the thing that's really likely, is that we're just going to get more of the same. And you're going to need more of it to have the same effect. You have to have more debt credit, more credit in the economy for a newly created borrowed dollar to have its effect. And we're seeing in the financial sector that borrowing has to continually ramp up for there to be a so-called benefit to the national economy. Similarly, in politics, you have to have more laws, more government, more programs, more promises, because with each step of the national power, there is a diminishing return. And I like to suggest, and I'm hearing people tell me that there is a kind of a final buildup at the end, when there is just total exhaustion at every front. When the people have turned away, the populace has turned away, there is discredit in Washington of government. There is somewhat more esteem of generals and the military. You are in a situation where there is no remedy and there is no fix. There's no repair. The government actors, whom we are going to talk about with Tony Sanders, are helpless to alter the grim U.S. fundamental. The fundamentals are bleak. And even if we had Ron Paul, our greatest statesman, even if we had Ron Paul is the leader of the pack, there would be no prospect. There would be no way that elections could be relevant to the fundamental nature of the American monolith, with the deep state behind it. In frustrated as it is with Donald Trump, I do think it is exciting to consider one thing about Donald Trump. Even though he has supported a pro-fisting gay organization, GSLEN. He has supported a pro-fisting gay organization, according to LifeSiteNews.com. He is causing great divisions in the government and among those who run the deep state. And they, of course, they don't like that they don't have a predictable person at the top, a person that they can't really control. They can pull at him from some of the strings dragging behind him. Some of his deep, dark past, some of his adulteries, some of his fornications. These are things that they can use perhaps against him. But they appear to be limited, and nothing that they've proposed to him in secret have had any effect on his public nuances and his public utterances. I am David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. We're brought to you by P5, the preparedness store. Whether you are interested in tactical goods, dried food, books, severe weather, materials, preparing you for severe weather. These are all there at P5 with Duke Nukem. Duke has a show here just after me every Thursday at 11 o'clock. And we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And what I do at Nooganomics.com, of which I'm the editor, and here is cover local economy and free markets in Chattanooga and beyond. The slogan I utter is one that is today the most laughable slogan of all, the most ridiculous slogan that you would want to consider on a day like today. And that is love your neighbor, buy local. But that I'd like to suggest is the remedy. The remedy is not with hiring the right man or engaging the right man. It is to realize that there is no federal solution, whether it's the presidential horse and pony show, or anything in a lower level for America's ills and its problems. These problems that have come to the aggregate of the American people through their states and upon their businesses are summarized in the idea of lawlessness in government. The government is lawless, and the only way we can bring anything back is by local action. That is to say, local action where the local man, the local sheriff, the local clerk, the local county commission says, no, we're not taking it. No, we don't want your money. No, we don't want your rules. No, we don't want your armored cars for our police department. No, we don't want your automatic rifles and grenade launchers for our police department. No, we don't want to have your armed officers in our schools. No, we don't want your money. That is where the action has to take place politically. But there is no support for that in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. There is no support for local action in a political sense. There is simply none here. And that is why I'm thinking of quitting. I'm thinking of quitting because there's nothing anyone in Chattanooga cares about local action and local self-government. Local self-government is not a thing that people believe in. And I say that because I have encountered a rare person who believes in local action. Everybody that I know, just about everybody that I know, or whom I know, says the action has to be in Washington. We've got to get the right person elected. And what they do invariably is play pragmatic politics. Well, if you don't vote for Trump, you're voting for Bill Clinton's wife. That's how they put it. And so what you have to do, you have to vote for Cruz or Trump, because if you don't, you effectively, as they say, you're effectively voting for Bill Clinton's wife. And to that, all I can do is laugh, and that is how we've gotten here in the first place. We're taking part in a system which continually degrades our moral fiber. Right? Our moral backs are bent over, and so finally, all we can do is grovel among these politicians. We are brought to you by Superior Air Systems and the big orange vans around Chattanooga. The Superior Air Systems. Bringing relief on cold days and hot days with maintenance and repair and updating of your cooling and heating system. Superior Air Systems, 886-6602, 886-6602. My name is David Tulis. I'm the editor of the website for The Man Who Matters in Chattanooga, and that's Nooganomics.com. And one reason I think I need to quit is because it's so unpopular to take the positions I'm taking. It's so unpopular. You wouldn't believe how unpopular I am. I'm not saying that people hate me. I think the problem is that people just don't care about what we're proposing here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. They don't care about real solutions for real problems, and they are described at the website for The Man Who Matters, and that is Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics.com, the website for The Man Who Matters. For example, I look at the number of people who've taken the time to look at an important interview with Mike Little, the candidate for judge. It's an important interview. I would say, an important interview with his rival, Boyd Patterson. The questions I asked, in a way, were better than the answers of either man. But still, to hear the questions and to hear the answers and to see what the interview suggests, I think is extraordinarily important. And that's because I'm asking the questions. I'm asking the questions of two candidates. And in some respects, there's strength, but in some respects, there is just an appalling lack of consideration of constitutional government. And so I say, pay attention. This is David Tulis, and you're here at AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
We expect lots of clouds for your Tuesday. A spotty shower or two will pass through with showers and storms likely late, becoming breezy, highs upper 60s. Tonight, showers and storms will pass through, lows into the upper 30s. More sunshine, chilly tomorrow, highs only near 50. More clouds, a late shower Thursday. Check out the Fresh Oil New Wine Conference at Abba's House, March 6th through the 10th. Pastor Ron Phillips welcomes Perry Stone, Tommy Bates, Randy Caldwell, and others for this week of encouragement and renewal. More at FONW.com. And I'm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
He's a U.S. military veteran, 27 years of assessment experience, and a proven conservative record.
Sterling Jeton is the only candidate equipped to run the Assessor Properties Office.
You have trusted us to serve. We trust Sterling Jeton to continue serving you with integrity and a commitment to conservative principles.
I'm Claude Ramsey.
And I'm Bill Bennett.
And I'm Sterling Jeton, and I'm asking for your vote on the March 1st Republican ballot.
Paid for by friends to elect Sterling Jeton. Pam McAllister, Treasurer.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business? Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock. Call me now, 875-5621.
Severe Weather Awareness Week, the 28th through the 5th. P5 Preparedness has weather radios only $19.95. At P5 Preparedness, weather radios are only $19.95 for a limited time only and a limited quantity. You need to get there now. Weather radios, $19.95.
P5 Preparedness on East Brainerd between Gun Barrel and I-75. Look for the Green Army truck, 423-602-2175. Look for us on Facebook.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Some Super Tuesday voting is getting underway.
There are 11 Republican contests today with 595 delegates. Donald Trump is coming into it with 82 delegates, far above Ted Cruz's 18. Cruz's home state of Texas votes today, and he's hoping for a win there as he and Trump keep up the attacks.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. As for Democrats,
Hillary Clinton spent the eve of Super Tuesday taking aim at Republicans who she says will send us backwards, deprive people of rights that they have obtained. She told supporters at a Virginia rally she looks forward to debating Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders rallied supporters in Minneapolis.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland. A woman and two young kids are safe after being held by a man during an hours-long standoff in Southern California. Police say the suspect is still at large. And Fiat Chrysler U.S. sales jumping a healthy 12% in February. Fox News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A 3-year-old boy was shot and killed inside of a car in Appleton on Gates Lane. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is still investigating. It's not known whether this was an accidental shooting or an intentional shooting. The child was pronounced dead at the hospital. Police say Laramie Fitzsimmons, who's 34, was arrested after breaking into his girlfriend's son's house while drunk and trying to beat up everyone inside. Witnesses say that when Mr. Fitzsimmons was asked to leave, he first tried to break the front door, but then when failing that, tried to break the window and succeeded, bloodying his hand. Witnesses say he knocked out one woman before he was detained by a family friend before police arrived. He's been charged with aggravated burglary and aggravated assault. His bond has been set at $25,000. There's been a rash of vandalism in Dalton with several windows of different cars being shot with a firearm. This is apparently not the first time this has happened on Underwood Street and Red Clay. Police are still looking for the culprits. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
You may say that my negative assessment of the political process today is bleak and makes me useless. Well, I don't want to be useless entirely, and so what I want to do now is just sketch out briefly the races in Hamilton County that might be of interest to you, or that I would say are important to you, starting with the race for one of the criminal court divisions. And there are 3 contenders there. They are Republicans. There is no Democratic name in the race for that. So the primary today will decide who sits on that bench judging criminal cases. The incumbent is named by Governor Bill Haslam. His name is Tom Greenholz. He's a Republican, of course. And then there are 2 challengers for his seat. One is Mike Little, who is a defense attorney. He's been for the past year and a half or so in the public defender's office. And then there's Boyd Patterson, who is a prosecutor. He works for the state. When there's a criminal case or an indictment, it's always brought in the name of state of Tennessee versus so-and-so. And Boyd and 14 or so prosecutors bring the case back to trial. And that's what prosecutors do. I have on the phone Tony Sanders. Tony, you are the chairman of the Republican Party in Hamilton County. Give my listeners a brief sketch of these 3 men from your party seeking criminal court judgeship.
Well, David, thank you so much for having me on, and you are correct, and you've assessed them very well. Tom Greenholz is an attorney who was appointed by Bill Haslam and is the current judge that is sitting in that seat. Mike Little, who is in the public defender's office, and Boyd Patterson, both who have criminal backgrounds, chose to run against Tom and the appointment, and so they've all done a good job. They're all working very hard, and I've seen them everywhere, and as most of your listeners have seen their signs everywhere. The thing about it, as you and I talked yesterday, I think it was attributed to Tip O'Neill. All politics is local, and he used it in the form of taking a national issue and making it local to make it important, so he could get a victory. But I really, truly believe this, and my job as Hamilton County Republican Party chairman is to foster Republican candidates for local offices. And in 2014, we had 36 seats up. This year, we only have 2. And normally it's only 1, the assessor of property, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But because of the retirement of Rebecca Stern and Tom's appointment, this seat is up for election this time. So there is no Democratic challenger in the general, which will be held in August. So pretty much today will decide what happens in the criminal court judge race.
Are you the worst person in town to ask about this contest, Tony Sanders, since you're the chairman of the party, or are you at liberty to say something of value to my listener about these men?
Well, and it will not be anything that's going to rock anybody's world. I have a lot of respect for all of them. Tom, worked in private law before he was appointed to the judge. He worked at Chambliss Bonner. Mike Little has been around for a long time, not only in private practice, but also in working in the public defender's office for actually a new public defender that was elected last year. In 2014. And then Boyd, most people know Boyd from his work in the gang task force. These are all outstanding gentlemen and working very hard to win this election.
And fill me in a little bit on Tom Greenholz. Is his background in law mostly civil practice?
I don't think so. I actually did some work with Tom probably in mid-2000s. In my role as a CPA and a fraud examiner, and I did some work with Tom. He hired me to do some work as a fraud examiner, and he was working criminal defense at that point. So I think most of his practice was involved in the criminal side. That was my only interaction with him, and like I said, that was circa 2006, and until he was appointed the judge now. So Mike, and I've actually probably worked as much with Boyd as any of the three, just in his work in the gang task force and being around the politics of the public defender and the prosecutor side, and being around all of those guys.
Well,
and Mike is very well respected in the public defender's office as well as a criminal defense attorney.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Tony Sanders, whose party, the Republican Party, is in strong operation here in Hamilton County. There are signs all over for candidates nationally and locally. The second most important race in the county on the county level is a property assessor. Tony, tell my listener just briefly what the property assessor does. There are three candidates. They're Republicans on the ballot. There's one candidate who is a Democrat on the Democratic primary, but he has no challenger. So while the judge race will decide who sits in the seat of the judge, it will be determined in August who the assessor is, because there'll be one winner of the Republican primary for the the property assessor's office, and then one Democrat to face him. So who are the candidates on the assessor side?
The three candidates in the property assessor's race are Marty Haynes, who is currently a county commissioner from District 3, which is the Hickson Middle Valley area. Sterling Jaton, who is worked in the assessor's office for many years, and then left the assessor's office to pursue other interests. And then when Bill Bennett announced that he was not going to seek re-election, Sterling got into the race. And then Randy Johnston, who is currently in the assessor's office and has been there for a number of years, I think over 30. But he works in the office now. So all three of these gentlemen stepped up when Bill Bennett decided he was not going to run, and have fought a very spirited campaign. I'll leave it at that. It's been interesting to watch this campaign for sure.
Well, all right. Now we have also these very wild contests for federal president. And what is my listener seeing out there in the way of signs? Who's got the most signs out as far as you can tell? Tony Sanders on the presidential race.
The presidential race is probably the most interesting race I've seen in a long time. I mean, nobody can ignore the phenomena of Donald Trump and what he has done to this point. And then I think it's down to basically four, Trump, Rubio, Cruz, and of course, Kasich. And, I don't know today's going to be an interesting day. You've got proportionate delegates that are allotted until March 12th, I believe. And then after March 12th, it's winner take all. So I was listening to and I was actually up in D.C. last week and listening to some of the talk up there. And I think the thing I find really interesting is people are trying to say, "Oh, Trump's walking away with it." Well, they've only allocated maybe 200 delegates out of over 2,000. It's a long way from being over. And it's today, Super Tuesday, SEC primary, whatever everybody wants to call it, is going to be a proportionate allocation of delegates. So everybody's going to get some delegates through this process. And then, on March 12th and thereafter, it's winner take all. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be, I think, telling how people do in this southeastern swing. But there's a lot of big primaries and things to come a little bit later for sure.
Well, go ahead.
And I honestly, David, don't know what your listeners are thinking or who they're leaning to. I have watched this whole race with great amusement, and how it's just going to be interesting to see what happens after the polls close this evening and who's sitting on top of the vote count.
Is your opinion as a political operative and political activist, Tony Sanders, that the party elected as president will change somehow fundamentally the direction of the government and the country? Is that possible that a particular person could do that?
God, I hope so. I hope so, David. I think I'm like many Americans out there, many of your listeners. I think we're tired and frustrated with what's happening.
What is happening?
Some people think that getting a Republican in charge will solve that problem, and I probably fit in that category. But I think honestly, anybody other than who we've had, and we could debate that for hours. I'll be honest with you.
Well, let me ask you, Tony.
I do want to see a change. I'm ready for a change, and I think America's ready for a change. And I think that's one reason that people have not been able to get a handle on Donald Trump. I think he's preaching a message of change that people like. Now, whether that's realistic or not is to be seen. I think Rubio's message, Rubio's definitely getting the establishment lining up behind him. Our own local former Congressman Zach Wamp is his campaign person here. And, of course, we saw just over the weekend where Governor Bill Haslam and Senator Lamar Alexander have jumped in on the Rubio endorsements. And he's picking up a lot of establishment endorsements now that Jeb Bush is out. So, the money is on Trump and Rubio. Cruz is definitely in it. It's going. This is where Cruz will really shine through this. If he's going to be able to do anything, it'll be in this southeastern swing, I believe. And so it's going to be interesting to see. Kasich is a tremendous governor in Ohio. Who's just not gotten a lot of traction. I know a lot of people looked to Kasich at the beginning as the person, and he just hasn't gotten the traction. But he's got a good message, so it's going to be.
Well, hang on. Let me ask you a question.
It's going to be a fun evening for everybody to sit back and watch what happens.
All right, Tony Sanders. Let me ask you a question. You say that the listener he's tired of what the status quo is. Well, define the status quo in such a way that your discussion of Republican candidates suggests an alternative. Is there a real alternative proposed by the Republican Party, or is it just more of the same with the same sort of with slight color alterations, maybe slightly different clothing? Describe the problem brought on by 8 years of Democratic control, and then how that description of the problem invites a Republican solution, if there is one.
Well, I think as we're seeing in the Democratic side with Clinton and Sanders running, I think it's a difference between a socialist agenda and a capitalist agenda, and I think that's what it boils down to. Can the Republicans change it? I mean, we've got to do something, David. I know you and I cannot spend our life spending more money than we bring in, but yet that's what we do in the government. People will argue that the Republicans do the same thing, and I'm not going to say that they haven't. But I do hope that if we do get some changes, that we can get some of this under control and start going in the right direction. I know probably you don't think that that's going to happen with the candidates out there, and I don't know. But I do think that we've got to see some changes, we cannot sustain what we're doing now. We just can't.
Well, the main critique you've made,
to see some kind of changes come out of this.
Well, Tony, the main critique you've made then in describing the status quo is essentially overspending and deficit spending. Is that and you're thinking
yes.
that Republicans have have a better prospect of either slowing that or reversing it than a Democrat?
Well, there's no doubt if you look at what Sanders' platform is, there's no way anything's going to slow down spending-wise under him, and I don't see any difference in Clinton, to be honest with you. You know, she's almost, in my opinion, a socialist light, where Sanders is full-blown socialist, and it doesn't work. I mean, history. This isn't Tony Sanders speaking. This is history. You know, show me a socialist government that's ever worked, and it hasn't. And so, you know, we've gotten to the point where we have, and I hear all kinds of different numbers. The last number I heard, well, actually, while I was in D.C., is 39% of the people are on government subsistence of some kind. That's leaving the rest of us, you know, the other 61%, to fund all this. This has got to change. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't want to pay any more in taxes than I don't want to pay what I'm paying now, and I sure don't want to pay any more. And you know, something has got to give, and hopefully we're going to see some kind of changes that will affect some of that going forward.
Well, listen, Tony Sanders, thanks for joining my listener and me here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you. Tony Sanders is the chairman of the Republican Party of Hamilton County, and we've been just kind of reviewing the slate of candidates. The most important, I would like to suggest, if you are a loco-centric person, if you are a Nooga-centric oriented listener, well, you're my listener. You are a Nooga-centric by habit. I hope habit developed here listening to my program. We've looked at the most important races, and those are that of judge and property assessor. And we heard Tony Sanders describe a little bit about these judges, basically the names and the names and career backgrounds of the judge candidates. There are 3 in the Republican primary. No, there are no Democrat challengers for that seat, held now by a political appointee, Tom Greenholz, very well connected Republican establishment figure with a extremely limited background in criminal practice, from what I've been able to gather. And then Tony Sanders was also telling us about the 3 candidates for assessor, Marty Haynes, Sterling Jeton, and Randy Johnston, 2 of whom are out of that assessor's office. And Marty Haynes, he's a county supervisor or county commissioner. There is a Democratic candidate, and we'll hear more about him when the voting takes place this summer. Well, this is David Tulis. There have been some endorsements, as he mentioned. Rubio has the backing of Lamar Alexander and Governor Haslam. Zach Wamp is apparently in charge of his local effort. Trump has obtained very recently the endorsement from Scott Desjardins, the very conservative Republican congressman. Others have endorsed no one. Bob Corker has said he's not making any comments. Chuck Fleischman, the federal representative from the Chattanooga area, has made no commitments either. Well, the question, though, is will having any one of these or the other make a difference to the fundamental situation, the financial crack up ahead? I would like to suggest cannot be altered except very, very, very slightly, maybe at the margins, by any one of them. Probably Donald Trump would have the most remarkable the prospect of making the most amount of diversions from the trajectory. But there too, it's likely that the system has so geared itself toward its compulsions of seizing assets from the federal trough that it won't alter the view of the equities markets, the view we could say of the marketplace itself, which is the aggregate of all human activities as they focus with confidence and hope on, let's say, equities, that is to say shares of publicly traded corporations, that being a kind of barometer of the mood of the people, a mood of those in the boardrooms of CalPERS and retirement systems such as the TCRS, the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, which is a liquid asset pool bigger than the state of Tennessee itself. Those boardrooms decide where we are going to place our hopes and our fortunes, in that case, tax-free, right? Tax-free fortunes. And we are going to move out here and move in there. And I think they're the options for these investment giants, and of course, the options for the small investor, which would be people like you and me, are very limited. They're much more limited for you and me than for the big players. But the big players, whenever they move billions, right? They move billions overseas. Capital relocates with the speed of light, and it is always seeking to find a return. And more so, I like to suggest it's not seeking return, but seeking to avoid a loss. There is a kind of an end game here with the zero ZPG, the zero ZIRP, right? The ZPG is zero population growth. ZIRP of a similar concept in a way. Zero interest rate policy. It is an end game, and it has taken, as the Martin Kreuziger, the Associated Press hack writer in the Times Free Press says, it has taken ZIRP has taken tools out of the Fed's economic toolkit, right? That's often how it's described for the boobs out there who have to have everything explained for them and digested for them. That's what we're told. So zero interest rate policies has delimited the actions and operations, the prospects for the Federal Reserve to manage the economy. It has managed the economy down to nothing, and in fact, the financial press today is telling us about the negative interest rate policy going into effect on bonds in Japan. And well, there's a story about the first bonds that are going long-term negatively. So in other words, if you buy these bonds, you have an obligation of paying the issuer for the privilege of buying those bonds. And that is in Japan, where the national debt is twice the size of the economy. And is also, it seems very, very unreasoning. The oddness of the financial sector is so remarkable that I've lost mine. That noted analysts such as Franklin Sanders of the Money Changer in Middle Tennessee, out of High Point, Tennessee, says that he feels that he is walking in a Dali landscape with its melted clocks and its skulls, where everything is made, as it were, of wet cardboard, and you push your finger into it and it just goes right through. There's this odd sense where things are made of Gumby plastic, right? That everybody's a Gumby boy, and things are very, very eerie and unreal. And we're not connected with reality. We're not connected with economics. And it's interesting. I was reading this morning out of a Rushdoony book, an excerpt. I've forgotten which one it was, but an excerpt pointing out why there's such disinterest in economics. And I find this very difficult for me, that there's so little interest in the marketplace, because my living, right, as an owner of a radio station and as a writer, it prospers or doesn't prosper insofar people care about economics. Well, they don't care about economics because they care about politics. And here's the difference. Economics is always rooted in real things, right? It's rooted in human society, in the way God made man, how men respond to things or don't respond. That's economics. The aggregate of the movement of assets, things that are physical, the use of land, the use of natural resources, the use of mines and ore and all kinds of things like that have an effect on the market. Aluminum and coal, these are all natural resources, and they're the basis of economics, right? They're the basis of the free market, where invention and human genius applied to these natural resources creates value, right? It creates value and creates the economy. Well, people don't care about economics. They don't care about what I have to say as a writer on that topic, because they want to live in another world, the world of ideas, right? The world of ideals, to which appeal the politicians, right? Politics is an appeal to ideals and dreams and hopes, and they're soft. Look at how little accounting there is. Look how little counting of numbers there is in the campaigns of people such as Bernie Sanders and Mrs. Clinton. They are in the end, they are kind of fascist. They believe in state regulation of the economy, though not state ownership. They don't go quite that far. But so they're fascists like Mussolini or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, among others. And so they're not numbers really don't matter, right? We can collect as much as we want. We can inflate as much as we need to keep our books straight. to not be held to account too soon. We just inflate the money supply and reduce the buying power of the citizenry by this secret tax of inflation. Are there solutions in the election? Are there solutions in the primary? And the answer is no. No. Where are they found? Well, they're found, I'd like to suggest, in local economy and the free markets. Even though we are in a primary today, Super Tuesday, those issues are there. They're there. They're just waiting to be looked at.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hello, I'm Mike Little, candidate for criminal court judge with 25 years of criminal court experience, which makes me the most qualified candidate. The experience I have gained from handling over 4,000 cases in state and federal court has equipped me with the ability to be fair, impartial, and independent. As your next criminal court judge, I will focus on keeping Hamilton County safe. I view this position as a public service and will strive to improve the daily operation of the court. I humbly ask for your trust and vote in the March 1st Republican primary.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Little, Barry Abbott, Treasurer.
MLS 2239. What would you do with all that cash? Listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips here, Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. $1,200. That's how much we just put back in a Saudi Daisy family's pocket per month. All they did was pick up the phone. 805-9100. That's 805-9100. Get that quick quote now. 805-9100. HomeRateMortgage.com. MLS 2239. Do you want to achieve the American dream in 2016? Listen up, y'all. I'm Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. We just helped a police officer purchase his first home in East Brainerd. Now he's grilling and chilling on his back deck. The American dream. You could achieve it with no money down options. Why wouldn't you call? 805-9100, HomeRateMortgage.com.
Hi, I'm Sabrina with Sabrina Realty Associates. Now is a great time to sell your home. In our area, inventory is at an all-time low, which translates into higher sales prices. Call us today at 423-499-7780 to set up a free consultation and discuss our unique and aggressive marketing programs. We will provide you with a free market analysis to determine the right value of your home. Call us today at 423-499-7780 or visit our website at SabrinaRealty.com.
Are you prepared for severe weather? February 28th through March 5th is Severe Weather Awareness Week in Tennessee. Do you have a severe weather plan? Do you know how to protect yourself from tornadoes? And most importantly, do you have a weather alert radio? Come to P5 Preparedness and let us help you get ready for severe weather or any other emergency. P5 Preparedness is located on East Brainerd Road between I-75 and Gun Barrel. Look for the Green Army truck. Call us at 423-602-2175. You need to get prepared today. Don't wait until it's too late. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Get the skills and supplies you need or die waiting for help. P5Preparedness.com.
Need more of your tax money back faster? EJPelton.com. Save time and money now. EJPelton.com. You wouldn't want to go to a dance by yourself, so why dance with the IRS alone? EJPelton.com. Get more of your money back faster now. EJPelton.com. For you and your business. EJ Pelton Tax Resolution and E-Filing Services. You earned it. Now keep more of your money. EJPelton.com. Offices in Brainerd and Saudi. EJPelton.com.
Yeah, I'm the tax man.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Saudi Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. The voting has been underway for a few hours now, and some of the states holding Super Tuesday primaries and caucuses. By tonight, if the polls are right, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton could be closer to locking up their party's presidential nominations. CBS's Nancy Cordes takes a look at the Democratic race.
Even Bernie Sanders would not dispute that Hillary Clinton is going to win a majority of the Super Tuesday states today. The question is how many, and will it leave him with a chance, even a small one, to catch up in later states?
CBS News Director of Elections Anthony Salvanto tells us all eyes for the Republicans are on Texas and Ted Cruz.
155 delegates at stake, but even more important is the politics. It's Cruz's home state. He needs to hold it. He's leading in the polls, but if Trump wins there, it could be a knockout blow to Cruz.
The viewing begins 30 minutes from now. At noon, a funeral service will be held for Ashley Gwindon, the young Virginia police officer who was gunned down on her first day on the job. Mourners lined the streets of Woodridge last night.
I just came out here to pay my respects to somebody who has more courage than me. I know I couldn't be a police officer, and I just wanted to say thank you.
At the White House, a short time from now, an open seat will be on the table.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley will sit down with the president for their first meeting since the sudden death of Justice Antonin Scalia. But there's no indication of any change in the stalemate over filling the Supreme Court vacancy this year. Republicans firmly oppose it, but the president will insist it's their constitutional duty.
CBS News White House correspondent Pam Coulter. While there's a lot Americans don't know about their war heroes. Live to CBS News correspondent Vicki Barker.
Since 9/11, 216 medals for valor have been awarded for military missions that were so secret they cannot be publicly discussed. USA Today says that's nearly 1 in 5 of the U.S. military's highest awards. It's testimony to an invisible war waged largely by special forces. One expert says these secret, perilous missions have involved some of the most intense hand-to-hand fighting in U.S. military history. Frank?
Secretary of State Kerry says the 4-day Syrian ceasefire is holding for the most part, but he's not deluding himself.
This is hard. But the fact is that we need to stop the cycle of fighting and of bloodshed that is destroying Syria.
The UN, angered by a North Korean nuclear test and a ballistic missile launch, is due to vote today on new sanctions against the communist governments.
Everything from nuclear-related materials, aviation fuel, conventional weapons, and luxury goods are included in the new sanctions.
CBS News foreign affairs analyst Pamela Falk tells us the resolution has a good chance of passing because it has the support of China, normally a close ally of North Korea. In early trading, the Dow Industrial Average is up 148 points and climbing. This is CBS News.
Loan is a 30-year fixed-rate loan with a 1-0 lender paid buy down. Reduced payment valid only during the first 12 months. The monthly payment during the first 12 months of your loan is based on a rate that is 1% lower than your interest rate for this loan program. Not all applicants will qualify. Rates and terms subject to change. NMLS 6606 Equal Housing Lender. Call 888-369-6455 for licensing information.
I'm Rick Arviello, CEO of New American Funding, and we have just introduced a no points, no lender fee 30-year fixed-rate mortgage at 3 5/8%, 3.57 APR with the first full year's payment at only 2 5/8%. At New American Funding, we figured out a way to give you more of your savings right up front. Your payment at 2 5/8% fixed rate in year 1 and 3.57% APR for the remaining 29 years with 0 points and 0 lender fees. This is for purchase or refinance. Even if you just got your loan, we might be able to really save you money. Isn't it worth a 10-minute call to find out?
Call New American Funding today at 800-963-4933. That's 800-963-4933. Or simply dial pound 250 from any mobile phone. Keyword, get that rate.
A popular contraceptive could cause complications. CBS News correspondent Jim Shannon.
The FDA will require a boxed warning for the Assure contraceptive implant, a nickel titanium device that's drawn thousands of complaints from women who say it has caused them chronic pain, bleeding, and other health problems. These devices are inserted into the fallopian tubes where they cause scar tissue to form, blocking sperm from fertilizing a woman's eggs. But experts say some women are at risk for serious complications, especially if the device shifts out of position and punctures the uterus or other organs. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
The top-secret bunker President Kennedy would have used if World War III had broken out while he was in Florida has become the object of a financial tug-of-war. The battle pits the museum that runs it as a tourist attraction and the port of Palm Beach, which owns the island it sits on. The museum claims the port wants to force it to close. The port denies that. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
30-year fixed rates.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect lots of clouds for your Tuesday. A spotty shower or two will pass through with showers and storms likely late. Becoming breezy, highs upper 60s. Tonight, showers and storms will pass through, lows into the upper 30s. More sunshine, chilly tomorrow, highs only near 50. More clouds, a late shower Thursday. Check out the Fresh Oil New Wine Conference at Abba's House, March 6th through the 10th. Pastor Ron Phillips welcomes Perry Stone, Tommy Bates, Randy Caldwell, and others for this week of encouragement and renewal. More at FONW.com. And I'm George 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
The not ready, TN ready written tests are, as I say, they're not ready. TN ready is the program for testing the kind of pornographic surveillance of students. It has been aborted, as you have read, and written tests are on their way, but they're not on time, according to the Mama Bears blog out of an unknown location in Tennessee, which kind of gives a roundup of the school news, where we place our hope in the state to save us from ourselves. Field trips have been rescheduled or canceled, according to the notice I received in the mail today. A week that kids love, National Read Across America, is being canceled or shortened in some districts due to testing windows being so screwed up. Of course, Read Across America celebrates Dr. Seuss's birthday and the love of reading. Just by the way, Dr. Seuss was his books are written to accommodate the look-say method, the one that if honestly and carefully implemented will create dyslexia, the reading neurosis that afflicts thousands and thousands of students in Tennessee. Because the printed TN Ready tests aren't ready, lesson plans have been royally messed up. These moms say multiple times now observation evaluations of teachers, sad to say, have been rescheduled or squeezed in before looming deadlines. Class projects, spelling bees, honor society inductions, Black History Month activities, and spring programs have been moved to accommodate the not ready yet TN ready turmoil. And there's a graphic that shows how a snowball starts on a slight incline on a hill, it rolls down, gets bigger and bigger, and then at the bottom there's a splat. In other words, the snowball hits something and overturns a good thing. And that is the report of the moms who are concerned about testing and who can't find their way in the world of education of their children, and so who rely on the faithful ministries of the Department of Education to bring about knowledge, learning, wisdom, sagacity, and good character among the children. There was a story in the Times Free Press yesterday that really should bear looking at, even though the paper on which it was printed has yellowed slightly already with a day's exposure to the elements. It's about bees and the decline of pollinators. It's out of Washington. There are 20,000 or so species of pollinators that are key, as the story said, to hundreds of billions of dollars worth of crops, right? From fruits and vegetables to coffee and chocolate. Yet 2 out of 5 species of invertebrate pollinators, such as bees and butterflies, are on a path toward extinction. And this is according to a report called The First of Its Kind. The writer is from the Center of Agri-Environmental Research at the University of Reading in England, and the paper has been published by the United Nations. The trouble is, the report can't point to a single villain, the story says at the Times Free Press website. Among the culprits, the way farming has changed, so there's not enough diversity, and wildflowers for pollinators to use as food. Pesticide use, including a controversial one, neonicotinoid, that attacks the nervous system, habitat loss to cities, disease, parasites, and pathogens, and global warming. The story says there's a quote from the report that says the variety and multiplicity of threats to pollinators and pollination generate risks to people and livelihoods. And there's a further quote that says these risks are largely driven by changes in land cover and agricultural management systems, including pesticide use. Well, insofar as the program to control the sun, one that has been long standing, we have had in Hamilton County and Chattanooga a break, which is to say we've had a break in February from sky striping. And we had activity yesterday in the skies. Again, that is the depositing of official pollution, according to one scientist who has analyzed these deposits left by injection methods from jet aircraft. The content is coal fly ash, which is a very, very fine talcum powder that contains aluminum and many other things, some of which have reflective qualities. And these particles, which are down in the micron size, there are billions and billions of particles in a handful of this stuff, and very, very fine. And it stays up in the air. The length of duration of coal fly ash as a sunlight inhibitor is in conflict. I'm not sure exactly what to say about that, whether these particles stay up there for months or even indefinitely, or come down within a couple of days, which is what one environmental says, that Dane Wigington at geoengineeringwatch.com, I think it's .com or .org, says that these things all come down within a couple of days, and therefore pose a threat in particulate form. They're particles. They pose a threat to humanity. Well, which is to say to you, right? They affect your health. They affect your breathing, and also your consumption of food, which is grown under skies where these jets have traced their cloud-making activities. We had, as I say, chemtrail activity 4 days in the month of February, which expired yesterday. We had sky striping February 3rd, the 5th, the 18th, and the extra day of the leap day on the 29th. That was we had sky striping activity, part of the national government's very important and vital policy of climate management to stave off disaster. Right, the theory is, we're being told in the press that we have to combat global warming. Well, the story keeps shifting. It's either global warming or climate change. The fact that the climate changes, we have to add vital ingredients to make the changes more violent, or if more violent, at least somewhat controlled or controllable by people, which is to say weather modification. And for that, jets are used, as well as energy projectors, which bounce beams of energy around the world, and can heat up. They can heat up the atmosphere and do things that are truly remarkable. A great credit to humankind that there are such methods of projection that have a control, or at least a great influence on the weather. There's a conference that's taking place this month in Great Britain, and one of the speakers is an American. He's a distinguished professor from the Department of Environmental Sciences at Rutgers, and he's an editor for a magazine that's called Reviews in Geophysics. He specializes in kind of odd studies. One of them is nuclear winter, but also of more recent relevance, volcanic eruptions and climate and engineering. His presentation at in March in London, that's this month in London, will focus on one of the chief ways of altering the climate, and that being the use of jet aircraft to create smog. His speech is called "Smoke and Mirrors: Not the Solution to Global Warming." He'll talk about the current program of sky striping as if it were theoretical. That, of course, is my understanding of it. We don't have just a theoretical idea of weather management, as it's called, but an actual program with very, very evil effects. And one of the effects I would like to suggest to you is the loss of pollination. In fact, the prospect of extinction of pollinators, according to the UN. And it's not just industrial farming that's to blame. It is industrial weather management involving itself in the great American ideal of recycling, right? Recycling is what the government is doing in violation of the Clean Air Act. But of course, the violation, you have to understand, is of necessity. Necessity is always the reason that government violates its own laws or violates human rights or constitutional rights. There is, for example, just look on surveillance, right? It's an illegal surveillance situation, but because of necessity in that doctrine, it voids and makes null protections of the people, whether health protections, clean air protections, and the like. So the government imposed the Clean Air Act as a show, as a demonstration of wanting to have clean air on the ground, giving it authority over emissions from the ground, utilities, and business, corporate business, and so on. But then on the other hand, it goes completely against said law with its aerosol geoengineering program. Dr. Robach says, if chemtrailing were ever to be devised and the prospect arrived of it being put into practice, he very likely would oppose it. And there's a quote here, if there were a way to continuously inject SO2 into the lower stratosphere, according to the lecture notes, it would produce global cooling, stopping melting of the ice caps and increasing the uptake of CO2 by plants. Although no system to conduct stratospheric geoengineering now exists, or no systems, plural, to conduct stratospheric geoengineering now exists, is an important point that he has to make. A comparison of different proposed injection schemes using airplanes, balloons, artillery shows that putting sulfur gases into the stratosphere would be inexpensive. Okay, it would be inexpensive. Okay, got that? References to fruity schemes, and I point out here that in an upcoming post at Nooganomics.com that they're fruity schemes of doing this, just Looney Tune schemes to do what is already well underway and very effective and very inexpensive, though it costs no doubt black budget billions. And that would be mass jet delivery. The fruity ones are the cannons in the sky, the ships that steam about the ocean, creating artificial clouds, and balloons that drop sulfur from 30 miles above the surface of the earth, and so on. He says, but there are at least 27 reasons why stratospheric geoengineering may be a bad idea. This is Dr. Alan Robach speaking here, describing his lecture coming up in a few days in London. He says these include disruption of the Asian and African summer monsoons, reducing precipitation to the food supply for billions of people. Okay, in other words, chemtrailing will do this. If chemtrailing ever happens, if it ever can be understood and thought possible by humankind with its military leaders around the table figuring out the plan, these are the dangers. And he's trying to list them. Ozone depletion. He says, no more blue skies. He says, reduction of solar power, Dr. Robach says, and rapid global warming if it stops. Okay, so in other words, if you have a mass geoengineering program and you suddenly stop, well, you'll have a rapid global warming. Furthermore, he says there are concerns about commercial or military control and serious degradation of terrestrial astronomy and satellite remote sensing. And that's because of the metallic content in the dirt that's sprayed in micron-sized particles, aerosolized particles in the atmosphere. And that was done over Chattanooga yesterday, late in the day. Global efforts, he says, to reduce anthropogenic emissions, mitigation, and to adapt to climate change are a much better way to channel our resources. So he's someone who says, let's have a totalitarian system on the ground. Let's ban cars. Let's tax cars out of existence. Let's tax smokestacks out of existence. And that would be a way of reducing what he calls anthropogenic. In other words, man-made emissions. So we have what we have today is we have an academic world bought off by the government. Almost all of academia is funded by government. And so if there is something going on amiss, let's say violating the Clean Air Act, you will not be able to find out about it because all the scientists are pretending that it doesn't exist. And what we need to have, they're proposing, is a scheme to have a mass delivery of aerosol in the sky. That's the goal. Have aerosol injection in the sky to dim the sun, to make gray skies. Gray skies are important, they say. Right? That's what they say. And there's no accounting among people such as Dr. David Keith of Harvard as to the human damage. And these people are taking the public health perspective. The individual matters not. We want the mass of humanity to survive, maybe if only 1 billion people or so. We want there to be a token of humanity to survive the coming global warming climate, the global warming disaster. And so we can't worry too much about people getting Alzheimer's or pollinators becoming extinct. We can't worry about that. We have to save humanity. And so this program is going to go on in secret. It goes on in secret because it has to. When the scandal breaks, there's going to be such revulsion against a particular kind of entity that we won't see that kind of entity for 5 or 6 generations, maybe 10 generations, I'm suggesting. And that entity is the very one which Donald Trump wants to control, the very one that Bill Clinton's wife wants to control. And that is the nation state with its capital, its flags, its armies, its banners, its taxes, its agencies, its promises, its zeal, its affection, its claim on the affections of the people who don't know better. And that entity will fade. Once this scandal breaks, if it can ever be made to show itself, there will be such a cry. It will be a cry almost as loud as the one that covered Egypt, the one that shrilled through Egypt on the night that the angel of death crossed into every house. We were reading that last night at family worship after dinner, and it is a remarkable account of God's judgment on the Pharaoh of that the god of that country. And he hardened his heart. He kept hardening his heart. He would not let God's people go. And God did that for his own glory so that he could demonstrate his great power with the fleas, the boils, the frogs, the darkness, the hail, and then finally the angel of death coming into every house that was not marked by the blood, right? The blood on the lintels of the doorpost. That was a sign that an innocent life had been shed to save the lives of the people therein. That would be, of course, the people of Israel living in the land of Goshen. And on the night of the coming of the angel of death, there was a cry in every household. In the household of Pharaoh was the cry, and in the household of the woman, according to Moses's retelling of the story, the woman, the handmaid who runs who does the weaving, right? Even she, in her household, there will be a death of the firstborn and of every animal. And so a cry rose. The cry that rises when people discover by reading the Washington Post and the New York Times that the American government has had a program like this for years and has sprayed the population for decades with asphyxiating materials. There will be a cry in the land, and there may be even held an accounting. Do you know that not a single person was held to account for the meltdown of 2008? I don't think a single person has gone to jail, though there were crimes left and right among the higher ups, right, among the top 1%. Crime after crime, no one is responsible. And the reason no one can be held responsible because to prosecute any one of them would show how fraudulent the whole paper money scheme is, and how unconstitutional and how ungodly that system is. You don't want to expose a particular party if everyone is to be shown in an evil light. So there's not been a prosecution here, though there may be, because what's involved is the health of the people. And Professor Alan Robach objects. He says he would object to any program going into existence like the one we saw here in Chattanooga, just mercifully, though, for 4 days in February 3, 5, 18, and 29. We did have sky striping over the city. And don't know about today. Sky striping often precedes odd weather. It often is done ahead of rainstorms, ahead of weather, to alter that weather, sometimes to make it drop elsewhere. Great plans, great software packages are operating to figure out where man's resources in nature, right, above the earth, not just below the earth, need to go. This is David Tulis. You are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Super Tuesday, where we are led to believe that whom we vote for president in the primary matters, that the fate of the country is in the hand of the voter. that if we just get the right man in or the right woman, there will be a return to sanity, a removal of the evil that has beset us. We will have, we will be Americans once again. We will have a restoration of what we've lost, and so on. Believe it, if you will. There is a good note to say about Advantage Printing in Brainerd. It's right near the Belvoir Light, not far from, well, right next door to Food City. There at the Belvoir Light. That's Advantage Printing with the blue awnings. Alan Jones will take care of you. Your digital printing, mailing services, large format projects, in-house design. We use him. He's got my homeschool newsletter in his hands right now. At Advantage Printing, we use the bulk mailing services at the Homeschool Association. His number is 629-1800. Go where the homeschoolers go, right? The homeschoolers know what's good. Go there. And they go to Advantage Printing, 629-1800. Call now and have Alan handle your next job. Also brought to you by Ducks, the Indoor Air Professionals, formerly known as Duck Busters. And also Ray's Plumbing here in Chattanooga. Ray's Plumbing, great little outfit. Ray Zaplinski, whose name, when you see it written, you can't figure out how to say it, but that is, I think, how you said. He will take care of you. He is a plumbing tough guy, been in that trade for years and years. Ray's, contact Ray's for your service. This is David Tulis. We're brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. No, it's not popular website, but it's the website for the man who matters, who thinks beyond the current paradigms, looking beyond the great shift out of politics and into a decentralized, a distributed economy. This is David Tulis, and I am the editor of Nooganomics.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect lots of clouds for your Tuesday. A spotty shower or two will pass through with showers and storms likely late, becoming breezy, highs upper 60s. Tonight, showers and storms will pass through, lows into the upper 30s. More sunshine, chilly tomorrow, highs only near 50. More clouds, a late shower Thursday. Check out the Fresh All New Wine Conference at Abba's House, March 6th through the 10th. Pastor Ron Phillips welcomes Perry Stone, Tommy Bates, Randy Caldwell, and others for this week of encouragement and renewal. More at FONW.com. And I'm Swarge 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
He's a U.S. military veteran, 27 years of assessment experience, and a proven conservative record.
Sterling Jeton is the only candidate equipped to run the Assessor Properties Office.
You have trusted us to serve. We trust Sterling Jeton to continue serving you with integrity and a commitment to conservative principles.
I'm Claude Ramsey.
And I'm Bill Bennett.
And I'm Sterling Jeton, and I'm asking for your vote on the March 1st Republican ballot.
Paid for by friends to elect Sterling Jeton. Pam McAllister, Treasurer.
Money, lots of money. I want to buy in the sky.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business? Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock. Call me now, 875-5621.
Severe Weather Awareness Week, the 28th through the 5th. P5 Preparedness has weather radios only $19.95. At P5 Preparedness, weather radios are only $19.95 for a limited time only and a limited quantity. You need to get there now. Weather radios, $19.95.
P5 Preparedness on East Brainerd between Gun Barrel and I-75. Look for the Green Army truck, 423-602-2175. Look for us on Facebook.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going
going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Fox News Talk 1240. Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Presidential hopefuls are keeping up attacks as they push for last-minute votes Super Tuesday. Donald Trump on Fox and Friends this morning.
Little Marco Rubio, let me tell you, he's been a disaster for Florida. Doesn't show up to vote, never even shows up to vote. He's got the highest miss record in the United States Senate.
Trump also slamming Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, saying he's done nothing for that state. Rubio calling Trump's views of the world dangerous.
He has not even a fundamental understanding of the defense needs of this country. He didn't know what the nuclear triad was.
Speaking to Greta Van Susteren on Fox's On the Record, the president meeting with Senate Republican leaders on filling the Supreme Court vacancy left by Justice Scalia. And we now know what the will of Osama bin Laden says. The Al-Qaeda leader claiming he had about $29 million in personal wealth and that he wanted the bulk of it to be used on jihad.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. School will go on despite shooting threats at Ottawa High School. The principal, Jim Jarvis, sent an email to parents of students at the school informing them of 2 additional threats of a shooting written on a bathroom wall today. This is the 3rd time in 2 days that a threat of a shooting on March the 1st has been written on a bathroom wall at the school. Despite that, the principal says that school will go on. Some parents are voluntarily keeping their children home. On Monday, some parents checked students out of schools, and teachers said that attendance was down due to the continuing threat. Attendance is expected to be down again tomorrow. Parents are saying that they're keeping their students home. In Appleton, a 3-year-old boy has died after being shot on Monday morning inside of a car in Appleton. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office was dispatched to that location at around 9:30 a.m. The preliminary investigation conducted by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office indicates that the child was shot while inside of a family vehicle. The investigation is still ongoing, and it's currently not known if the shooting was intentional or accidental. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
No matter who wins the primaries, no matter who wins the election, the government always gets in. That is the dispirited perspective of many people who bother not to take part in the Democratic franchise, to take part in the vote. They realize, some of them, that they've got more important things to do. They've got to change the oil. They've got to do the shopping. They've got to go and pick up the children from the daycare center on the other side of town. And they have to visit their mother on the Medicare dole at a nursing home, and that's going to just take up the whole latter part of the day that they set apart for doing that visit ordinarily. But here it is, the primary day, and the person thinking through his schedule just can't fit voting in because of some rational duty or other to do today, or it doesn't matter to him who that person is at the top. It doesn't matter who the person is in the court or in the assessor's office. And so he pays no attention to the process. There is something disheartening about that. On the other hand, we have to understand that this is rational. It's not irrational. It is a rational thing for people not to vote. And so the question is there a problem with the election itself, the idea of elections themselves, the idea that we have to choose people to stand or sit over us, to judge us, if you will, to represent us, or to assess us for our taxes. Well, think about this: if you don't own your house, you're just the holder of your property, and so it's really going to matter to you, right, to have the best man to be assessor. Is it Marty Haynes? Is it Sterling Deton? Is it Randy Johnson. He is going to determine how badly you're hit next year, and so you ask yourself, do I really care? I'm hit badly now. Do I want to participate in naming the person, choosing the person who's going to be making that assessment? This is David Tulis and caller. You're live on the air at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Mr. Nooganomics.com. I'm not one that believes in the federal vote much because the bureaucracy will crank out its fascism and socialism. However, Mike Little made a statement earlier on the radio station, which I agree with, is the most important election is coming up locally. That circuit court judge, that local judge is more important than the election of the Supreme Court and president, because that judge can stop tyranny right in its tracks. And we don't think about that if the proper person is elected, let's say David Tulis was elected to that position, and someone came before you being charged with a crime of, let's say, not having a driver's license or not having a permit to carry a weapon that they're guaranteed to under the Second Amendment. Would you, David Tulis, as the judge, dismiss that case?
Well, I would probably cite the Tennessee provision that says that that does give the right to bear arms and grants the legislature the authority to regulate the wearing of them. And so it would depend if the question was the wearing. Was the man wearing the weapon, or did he simply have the weapon nearby? If you're wearing the weapon, that would be subject to regulation under the Tennessee Constitution. So I would say the question is, was he wearing it or was he not wearing it? If he wasn't wearing it, then he had a right to have it. If he was wearing it, the question would be, was it subject to the regulation of the legislature? And I believe, from what I know, that would imply the need to have some kind of license for it. Even though the Second Amendment,
what I'm saying is that you basically would dismiss it. You stop tyranny in its tracks.
Well, you're setting me up on that one, sir. And I would say that probably I would be very, very hard on the prosecutor. I would be very, very reluctant to grant jurisdiction, and I would be very scrupulous on looking at the circumstances of the arrest before I allowed there to be a trial. And I would be very prone to dismiss the case on the slightest grounds.
So you stop tyranny in its tracks.
Well,
and even
yes.
as a libertarian, you still believe the state has the authority to license the wearing of guns, which are wrong, by the way. Any single gun law that was ever passed, even speaking about regulating a gun, is tantamount to sedition and tyranny. And I'd have anyone arrested that did that. That law is blatantly unconstitutional, period.
Well,
no regulation.
It sounds like what you're arguing for is the idea of local authority. You're magnifying local authority, and you're diminishing my listener's view of national authority. And I think that is the proper form in which the solution for the national disaster ahead will be found. And these solutions will come. They will come. We can start working on having them now, listener by listener, or we can just wait for the disaster to happen, in which case there will be these authorities will be thrust back from the national power in the next several decades to the states and to local counties, maybe to new states that will be formed, or new countries that can be formed out of the hide of the federal republic.
Well, tyranny stops with the local police that's educated, and the sheriff and the local judge. It stops locally. And you talk about that all the time with Nooganomics. If you get the right person there to sit behind that bench, and the police officer and the sheriff are educated, they stop tyranny right then and there, and it goes no further.
Well,
now you have what we call liberty.
I agree, but I make note that David Fowler, the Family Action Coalition of Tennessee activist in Nashville, the former senator, Christian man, very fine Christian man, he points out that there's not a public wherewithal to take these steps. Now, here in Chattanooga, the callers reminded me, I'm one of the people who has talked a great deal about democratic principles. Okay, these are democratic principles where you, the listener, and your committee have legal authority. For example, we have in Tennessee the relator statute. That's RELATOR, the relator law. That lets 10 people in a county unseat a county official for an unconstitutional or unwarranted act. It is it's a kind of quo warranto action where you simply say, what warrant do you have to act? And the committee, the relator committee, sues in chancery or in criminal court or circuit court. And it says, what warrant do you have for this act? You have none. We throw you out of office. And the case is heard and tried, say, by Pam Fleener or Jeff Atherton in chancery court. They can throw out a county clerk, say, who has reinterpreted marriage as against the Constitution. But the problem is we deserve what we get. You, my listener, very passive, joining everybody else in passivity. You share in the responsibility for what we have for gay marriages. We have more than 100 gay unions formed in Tennessee, a rather high percentage, according to Nooganomics.com. And no one complains, no one objects. We have gay benefits proposed in city council, and the protest is so slight that there's room in the lobby to stand outside the city council chamber. There's room to stand. I was there on some of the readings of that measure that passed gay benefits. Why was there not such a crowd that you couldn't even get to the city hall starting 2 blocks out? How come there were so few people for whom that mattered? Well, it matters not for the people, and the party to blame, I would suggest, is the most important group of all. That would be God's people. That would be Christian people who have divine sanction. They have inerrant authority on what's right and what's wrong. Right? That's the word of God. So they say, and yet they defend it not when it is challenged and when it is trampled upon by public authority. Whether judges or county clerks or city councils, they simply don't connect what they believe about the afterlife, if you will, or about God, and the nature of law, which affects the moral condition of the people. Right? Why do you have in Chattanooga, you have the ordinance that allows the police department exercising police power to suppress houses of ill repute, whorehouses. Well, they have the authority to suppress whorehouses and places where pornography and morals are endangered on police grounds, because there's a distinction of right and wrong. And the same way, you have that authority. It's an exercise of moral authority. It applies not just outside of the council, but inside the council. And yet, people of moral bearing, people of Christian instruction, people who have been instructed about what God wants, how humanity is to be advanced by obedience to God's laws and prosperity, they don't care. And so we have a great laxity in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. And the blame goes, if there's blame to be apportioned, upon each Christian minister who has never brought up the topic, never even thought about these topics that we consider here every day. So you, my listener, not being a church member, you're more informed about the Christian worldview than your average churchgoer who listens to other channels or doesn't pay any attention to Nooganomics.com. You, my listener, are more informed, though you're not a Christian, about what Christianity does in its operation than the average churchgoer who hears a sermon from the Word of God every day. And I don't sermonize you, my listener. I know you're not here for that, and I don't try to do that. But the moral perspective that we offer is in terms of equity, and equity is best defined in sum by the character of God. The character of God is totally just, totally fair, totally right, totally holy, right? And so his standard is one that brings prosperity, liberty, and great innovation, and I would say population growth. Many other things that we are craving here in Hamilton County. We crave more people, and the only ones really helping us are Hispanics, Guatemalans who are moving here for liberty and for freedom and for the prospect of work. We talk about these candidates for a president, and I would say that almost all of them are bad. Whomever you pick will be bad for us. And so voting, you're voting for any of the candidates is saying, I want Donald Trump to aggress on the rights of my neighbor, or I want Ted Cruz to aggress on the rights of my neighbor by the operation of his government, based some vaguely perhaps on some of his policy points or some of his position papers that he brings about and starts implementing as so-called policy out of the White House once he's elected. But Donald Trump is a man of no moral discernment. He has no moral discernment. He has boosted the lug butt agenda. He has given, oddly enough, though, 3 times as much money to Christian organizations as he has to a group that advocates fisting. Do you know what fisting is? Fisting is a homosexual act of delight that was promoted according to early documents from the from the founding of that organization in 26 years ago. It's the gay GLSN, originally the Gay and Lesbian School Teachers Network, founded by Kevin Jennings in 1990. In the early days, it was very bold in what it proposed, and fisting was one of the methods. Again, a group funded by Donald Trump's charity, according to the 990 form filed with the IRS. The Donald Trump Foundation donated $20,000 to GLSEN in 2012, and another $10,000 to Gay Men's Health Crisis. GLSEN has been upfront about its goals and desire for mainstream respectability, according to LifeSiteNews.com. In 97, Jennings said, "I can envision a day when straight people say, so what if you're promoting homosexuality?" This group recommends that children face saturation of its viewpoint beginning in kindergarten. Gay activist Jackie Williams taught a workshop on inclusive kindergartners in a 1997 regional conference. Children in the kindergarten age are developing their superego. That's when the saturation process needs to begin, says Williams, a New York teacher. 5-year-olds are very interested in the big questions. They're very interested in sex, death, and love, and ask those questions, and they talk about them, she said, and we want to help them find the answers. And part of the goal of the sexual agenda that Donald Trump promotes in his scattered donations is this: to decodify and rename the traditional family structures, a process that includes, as of kindergarten age, games and songs. There's a toolkit. Ready, Set, Respect. GLSEN advises elementary school educators to challenge the stereotypes that may impair healthy development. Among other things, they could make sure the analogies you use when teaching don't rely on heteronormative or gender normative images or viewpoints, right? That's, you, my listeners, something are likely to be guilty of. Teachers should, for instance, casually use word problems, including two dads or two moms, rather than a mother and a father. When discussing this issue, help students to move past preoccupations with the rightness and wrongness of same-sex coupling or homosexuality in general, place the debate over marriage within the context of human rights, thereby expanding the dialogue beyond the realm of morality. Pedophilia is something that is favored by the lug butt gang. In Queer 13, Lesbian and Gay Writers Recall 7th Grade, author Justin Chin describes how, as a titular 13-year-old child, he really did enjoy the near rapes he experienced from gay adult males. In Passages of Pride, Kurt Chandler writes about a 15-year-old who is subjected to statutory rape by a troll who was almost twice Dan's age. Nonetheless, Chandler writes, everything was consensual. And we hear also about Harry Hay, a socialist who stated that statutory rape by homosexuals is precisely what 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids need more than anything else in the world. And they would be welcoming this and welcoming the opportunity for young gay kids to have the kind of experience that they would need. This is the pedophilia file, if you will. And then, of course, there's Fistgate. Margot Abels, who was an employee of the Massachusetts Department of Education, told young people that fisting often gets a really bad rap. She said it is merely an experience of letting somebody into your body that you would want to be that close and intimate with. I'm not going to tell you what's going on here, okay? I'll let you figure that out. Ask your teenage son who has had some conversation with young gay men. When asked why anyone would ever be interested in such a practice, Abels said it may help put them into an exploratory mode. So fisting, which is the use of the fist placed in an ungodly location, never intended for it to be contained, that is what's in view here. And that is something proposed by gay activists who are supported by Donald Trump in his frenetic donations left and right. A man clearly not of principles. Well, does the election matter? Does the selection of Rubio or Cruz or Kasich or Sanders or Clinton, President Clinton's wife or Donald Trump, do they really matter? Will they make really any difference? I think that the main issue is not what you think. It's not what the Republicans would tell you or the Democrats. It is to maintain a non-movement of two parties, and that would be the controllers, which would be the politicians and the bureaucrats, and the corporate elite, and the controlled, which would be, you could say, the taxpayers. That would be the common people, such as you and such as me. No matter who wins the election, you can be assured that the new boss will be the same as the old boss, and the old boss is overseeing this permanent underclass, which is us, right? Which is us. And we will be forced to march in lockstep with the police state in all matters, public and private. This is a few words from the constitutional attorney John Whitehead, writing at at ronpaulinstitute.com, also at his website on the Rutherford Institute. And what are some of the things that are not going to be changing? Well, what will not be changing at all are myriad. Despite the fact that the number of violent crimes in the country is down substantially to the lowest rate in 40 years, the number of Americans that will be jailed for nonviolent crimes, such as driving on suspended license, is skyrocketing. There's a great story I'm not going to have time to mention out of The Economist, which talks about a man who's charged, jailed, and incredibly harassed for growing herbs and selling herbs without a permit, and he's has to go to prison for it in a raid, an armed raid on a little business that earned him $20,000 for selling favored tincture ingredients. Thanks to an overabundance of 4,500 plus federal crimes and 400,000 plus rules and regulations, it's estimated that the average American actually commits 3 felonies a day without knowing it. In fact, according to John Blake, a law professor, there is no one in the United States over the age of 18 who cannot be indicted for some federal crime. This is not an exaggeration. We have 46 million Americans living at or below the poverty line, 16 million children living in households without adequate access to food, and about 900,000 veterans relying on food stamps. Well, that's an enormous amount of taxpayer money doled out for presidential vacations, including 16 million recently for trips to Africa and Hawaii. Overtime fraud at the Department of Homeland Security is nearly $9 million. Improper overtime claims, and that's just in 6 of the DHS's many offices, there's a link provided. And we spend $10.5 million every hour for numerous military occupations, including Iraq and Afghanistan. There's also the $2.2 million spent every hour on maintaining the United States nuclear stockpile, $35,000 spent every hour to produce and maintain a collection of Tomahawk missiles, and the money the government exports to other countries to support their arsenals at the cost of $1.61 million every hour from the American taxpayers. And then you get to the whole policing crisis, right? The whole militarization of policing crisis that is going to be stoking public sentiment against the state even more. Unless there's a de-escalation, a demilitarization here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, there's going to be more bloodshed by gang warfare. According to a Gallup poll, Americans place a greater faith in the military and the police than in any of the 3 branches of government. That is a note of encouragement for the officer. Today, 17,000 local police forces are equipped with such equipment as Black Hawk helicopters, machine guns, grenade launchers, battering rams, explosives, chemical sprays, body armor, night vision, rappelling gear, and armored vehicles. Quoting Paul Craig Roberts, the former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, some have tanks. At least 400 to 500 innocent civilians are killed by police officers every year. I think the figure actually is past 1,000 if you go to the Guardian website. Indeed, Americans are now 8 times more likely to die in a police confrontation than they are to be killed by terrorists. Americans are 110 times more likely to die of foodborne illness than in a terrorist attack. And that's thanks partly to industrial agriculture and industrial food rejection of the local economy, local food model. Police officers are more likely to be struck by lightning than to be made financially liable for their wrongdoing. You hear that? If you're a cop, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to be made financially liable for wrongdoing in that excited moment when you felt for your personal safety. On the average day in America, over 100 Americans have their homes raided by SWAT teams. Most of those SWAT teams raids are for mere warrant service. There has been a notable buildup in recent years, he says, of heavily armed SWAT teams within non-security related federal agencies. Think about that. TVA, the Department of Agriculture, the Railroad Retirement Board, the Office of Personnel Management and Consumer Product Safety Commission, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Educational Department have SWAT teams. Why is that? Do you think that Trump is going to make any difference to that? Do you think that Trump, the great egoist, is going to change any of the things, any of the tremendous expansions of power brought to the federal executiveship by Obama? Do you think that's going to change? Do you think that Rubio would give up anything that has been carved out by Obama? Do you think Cruz would? Well, you are a great idealist if you think that that's the case. If you think that voting today will make any difference to those situations, you can affect those situations not a bit. Not a bit. The hope is not there. The hope is local economy and the free markets. The hope is that we, not counting these people for much, not esteeming them, not counting their elections, their parades of marketing, right? You're entering into a parade ground here today, and it is all for marketing. Marketing the national government, marketing the idea that you have some effect on the national situation. You don't. You do have an effect, though. You do have an effect here in Hamilton County, in Chattanooga. And if you're not from here, you're just passing through in your part of the world, you have an effect there. Local people need to say no. Local people need to stand up on God's law and on principle.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.